Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a live telephone town hall with your representative in Congress, John Mannion. I'll be serving as moderator for today's telephone town hall with Congressman Mannion, which is also being live streamed on our website at mannion.house.gov. In just a few moments, Congressman Mannion will introduce himself and share brief remarks. Then we'll open the call up for live questions. If you are a constituent in Central New York or the Mohawk Valley and need assistance with a federal agency, including Medicaid, Social Security, Veterans Benefits, passports, the IRS, please know you can contact a member of our staff at 315-233-4333 or visit our website at mannion.house.gov. Again, that's 315-233-4333 or visit our website at mannion.house.gov. Before I turn things over to Congressman Mannion, I'd like to remind everyone that if you'd like to ask a live question at any point during the call, please press star 3. And if you'd like to subscribe to Congressman Mannion's newsletter to stay up to date on everything he's doing for NY22, please press star 6. Okay, let's get started. Congressman Mannion, I'll turn it over to you to say a few opening remarks.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining tonight's telephone town hall. I'm Representative John Mannion, and I appreciate you taking the time to be a part of this conversation. This is my first town hall of 2026, and I'm grateful to everyone across Central New York and the Mohawk Valley who continues to show up, speak out, and stay engaged. While the calendar requires me to be in D.C. for most weeks, you're always welcome to visit my staff in either of our Syracuse or Utica offices or at the mobile office hours my office hosts regularly across the district. I want to get to as many questions and topics as possible at the town hall, but if we don't get to you or speak to your issue, please come to my team's mobile office hours tomorrow at any of the following locations from 10 to 1. That's the Liverpool Library, Auburn Public Theater Cafe 108, the Cortland Free Library, my office in the State Office Building in Utica, and the Cazenovia Public Library. Again, members of my staff will be available tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Liverpool Library, Auburn Public Theater Cafe 108, the Cortland Free Library, my office in the State Office Building in Utica, and the Cazenovia Public Library. No appointments are required, and again, that's tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. My team is available to help you with veterans issues, the IRS, Social Security, Medicare, passports, and other federal programs. Or you're welcome to come and share your views and ideas. Whenever you call my office, visit with my team, or send me an email, I get those messages. My team gives me regular updates about what they are hearing when I'm in Washington, like I am right now. I want to begin by briefly addressing what is understandably front of mind for many people tonight. Over the past several weeks, our country has witnessed two deeply disturbing killings by federal agents in Minnesota. Renee Good and Alex Preedy should be alive. These deaths demand answers. They demand accountability, and they demand immediate action. What we see from ICE and Border Patrol and the Department of Homeland Security in cities across this country is unacceptable. At times like these, it's easy to feel discouraged or frightened. But I want you to know that your advocacy and voice has made a difference. I join many of my Democratic colleagues in Congress to use the appropriations process to demand change. DHS funding has been separated from the rest of the bills that were passed to fund the government. It's my hope that we can agree to common sense protections for people and civil rights as that bill continues to get negotiated over the next several weeks. I'm sure we'll speak more about that shortly, and I look forward to discussing immigration policy, affordability issues, including healthcare and utility bills, the Epstein files, foreign policy, and my thoughts on the actions of President Trump and his administration. But before we go to the phones, I do want to share a bit of good news. And that's the recent passage of all 15 of my community project funding requests. These projects, totaling over $15 million, are a big win for NY22. I'm proud to report I was able to fund major upgrades at Syracuse-Hancock International Airport, public safety investments, lead pipe remediation and other drinking water infrastructure, rural health care, affordable housing projects, including the redevelopment of the former St. Luke's Hospital campus in Utica, as well as cutting-edge research and innovation funding. These are the kinds of investments I promise to deliver, and I'll keep fighting to make sure Washington works for this district and for all of you. One more thing before we open up the call for questions. If you can't make it to our mobile office hours tomorrow, please don't hesitate to give my office a call at any point to share your views or request help with a federal agency. You can always call 315-233-4333 or visit mannion.house.gov for assistance. Again, that's 315-233-4333 or mannion.house.gov. With that, I want to hear from you. I know people have questions, concerns, and strong views, and that's exactly why we're here tonight. I'm going to turn it over to our moderator to start with the questions.
Thanks so much for those remarks, Congressman Mannion. And in case anyone didn't catch it before, to ask a live question during tonight's telephone town hall, please press *3. Some of the participants on tonight's call submitted questions in advance. I'd like to get started with a question that Frank submitted. Frank asked, many families like mine are struggling to keep the lights on right now. How will you hold companies like National Grid accountable for raising rates and squeezing consumers? Congressman, over to you.
Thank you for that question, Frank. I'm going to start by saying I acknowledge that this is a problem. I feel it myself, and I hear it from constituents almost every day, and we're taking action. I recently joined and I'm one of the founding members of the Lowering Energy Costs Caucus to lower utility bill costs. This is a group of legislators, and our staff are working with us well to brainstorm and come up with real solutions to lowering these costs. And we're already working on some of those solutions. Prior to joining that caucus, I can say that I demanded that the Public Service Commission in the state of New York, of which I am not a legislator any longer, not raise the rates for utility companies across the state. But unfortunately, that rate increase was significant. And now what we're seeing is the actual cost of fuel going up as the winter has been cold and demand is up. So I want to say that there are some things that we can do at the federal level. We already have programs like LIHEAP in place to lower and help individuals with their heating costs. And I encourage everyone who needs information on that to contact our office, and emailing us is a great way to do that. But also what has happened in this administration is the president has stopped many of the projects related to energy generation and energy transmission. I look at energy generation as an all-hands-on-deck approach. And in central New York, we're very good at generating clean energy. Nuclear energy, hydropower, solar, wind. We utilize natural gas and other sources of energy. We can't take anything off the table. Over the course of the next several years, our energy demand is only going to go up significantly, and therefore we cannot handcuff ourselves and take some of these projects off the table. We need all of it. We need resilient systems. We need affordable energy. We need clean energy. We need it to be sustainable. And as a result, I support many initiatives within this caucus and without of it. One of them is making sure that we support ownership of our utility countries in the United States of America, so that when there are profits, they go back to the workers and they don't go overseas. We have to continue investing, and the federal government should invest in more transmission, stronger grids, and an all-of-the-above approach to energy generation. We also need to expand our energy efficiency programs, which will help families use less and pay less. So I appreciate the question, and I understand that this is a serious problem. This administration is not focused on lowering costs. In fact, we talked a lot about recently the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Well, those weren't extended, and people's health care costs are going up, and it's going up for all of us, even if you aren't on an ACA plan. But on day one, the president made permanent tax cuts for corporations and for the ultra-wealthy. And as a result, we're all feeling the pain of that. So I'm willing to work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to lower costs and certainly lower the costs as it relates to utilities. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Congressman. And I'll note for our audience to ask a live question tonight, please press *3. While we're waiting for more questions to come in, let's do a quick poll question for our audience. Our first poll is about healthcare costs. The question is, are you currently experiencing or expecting an increase in healthcare costs and premiums? I'll repeat that for everyone. The question is, are you currently experiencing or expecting an increase in healthcare costs and premiums? Please press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for unsure. Again, press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for unsure. And with that, we'll go ahead and start taking live questions now. And remember, to ask a live question during this call, please press *3. Our first question is going to come from Jennifer in Bridgeport about impeachment. Jennifer, you're now live with the Congressman.
Hello.
Hello, Jennifer.
Hi, yes. My question was, if we win the midterm, are we going to impeach Trump? And I also wanted to add to that, what are we going to do to protect our local citizens if ICE is violating their constitutional rights?
Thank you for the questions, Jennifer, and I'll start with the impeachment question. Do I believe that the president has committed impeachable acts? I do. The first instance and there's many others, but one of the most obvious for me is a violation of the Emoluments Clause. Right around Inauguration Day, there was a cryptocurrency that was launched from the Trump family, and they benefit greatly from that, the purchase of this coin and the trading of the coin. And if that isn't bad enough that the president and his family are using his position to make themselves even wealthier, it's that those that have purchased this coin are getting special privileges. And these aren't regular people, everyday Americans. These are the ultra wealthy. So what we've seen is that the president has commuted sentences or ended investigations, or those that committed fraud against others and were supposed to pay restitution. The president has wiped those away for individuals that directly purchase his currency. It's a clear violation of the Emoluments Clause. There's other things that I find deeply disturbing, and I believe are impeachable offenses as well, and that's the weaponization of the DOJ against the president's political rivals, and also his threats towards the First Amendment, members of the media, and the use of government agencies to make decisions in those media outlets. So articles of impeachment have been brought to the floor this session 3 times. Even though I believe that many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle see these also as impeachable offenses, they have voted to table this. And honestly, I have as well, because I knew the votes weren't there. But on this most recent submission of articles of impeachment, I did vote for them to proceed. So when we do take the gavel in 2027, there will be hearings, investigations, and a case built. And when all of those things happen, which has to really happen in case it is found that this should advance over to the Senate for an impeachment trial, all of that information, background, subpoenas, investigation is going to be necessary to conclude whether or not the president's actions have reached that level where he would be found guilty. So it is a long process and a detailed process, and that process could be starting already, but as I said, in a highly politicized and partisan climate, we're not seeing that support for the process to move forward from the other side. On the other issue, as far as ICE's actions in our communities, I want to start here. I voted against the reconciliation bill, and I voted against it for a number of reasons. But one of those reasons is that taxpayer dollars, billions and billions of taxpayer dollars, record dollars that could make everyone's life more affordable, are going to ICE, where they are brutalizing Americans, American citizens, and they're killing them. They're out of control. They need to be reined in. Immigration enforcement, we've had to do over the course of multiple administrations, but it should be just, fair, humane. It should follow the law. And a judge recently, in ruling on a case related to the Department of Homeland Security, said that they have violated the law over 96 times. Multiple clauses of the Constitution have been violated. So we need dramatic changes there. As you could probably imagine, I have certain demands that I believe we must meet. You know, the masks should come off, judicial warrants should be required, and the law should be followed. The Fourth Amendment regarding illegal search and seizure should be followed, ending our roving, these lawless patrols. And of course, we have American citizens that are being deported and detained, and ICE is using children to leverage parents to self-deport. So all of those things are incredibly disturbing. They are racially profiling. There are checkpoints in Minnesota and other places. And I believe that Secretary Noem has shown us time and time again that she is not fit to lead this department. So I will say that I wish I could give everyone an assurance that everyone's due process rights will be followed and that they won't be violated. I cannot give that assurance. All I can tell you is that we are going to continue to try to amend legislation. Many of the things I just listed that I believe must happen to restore the integrity, honestly, of this administration. They're not credible. When people are killed by federal agents and immediately the secretary goes on television to declare them domestic terrorists, when we saw exactly what we saw with our own eyes. So you can't lie to the American people. So we have tried multiple times to amend legislation to reinforce these requirements of body cameras, no masks, agents identifying themselves, and unfortunately they've been voted down along party lines. But we're going to continue to push. We're going to continue to tell the truth. And I thank you for your question and your concern for your fellow citizens. In my district, in our district, in Cato, at All Saints Church, at Upstate Medical Center, you can hear the stories of the people that surround the folks that were detained. Those people who, by and large, have been living by the law and are contributing members to our community and our economy. They came to pursue their American dream. Many of them, those around the area, including those I cited, were checking in at their immigration hearing following the law. And then some of them have been deported to a country that is not even their own home country. All of those things are incredibly disturbing to me, and it's very unpopular. Jennifer, so many stand with you across Central New York and the Mohawk Valley because we are caring people, we are welcoming people. We have welcomed refugees and asylum seekers to this region for generations, including my own families. I thank you for the question, and I will continue to fight for everyone's due process and constitutional rights.
Thank you, Congressman. Before we go to our next caller, let me remind everyone that if you'd like to ask a live question, please press star 3. If you'd like to sign up for Congressman Mannion's newsletter to get updates on future telephone town halls and other updates from our office, please press star 6. We're next going to go to Edison from Chenango with a question about ICE. Edison, you're now live with the Congressman.
Thank you. Hi, Congressman. I'm asking about ICE, about accountability. I know, of course, the funding is a part of it right now, but in terms of accountability, not just at the highest levels with Kristi Noem and that, but within the agency itself, what can Congress do, if anything, be it now or after the midterms when you get the gavel, to hold like some of the rank and file people that are in ICE and CBP and all of that to account for what's going on in Minnesota and elsewhere in the country?
Yes. Edison, thank you so much for the question. And I'm really glad you asked it because of all the things I listed, there's one thing I forgot, and that's exactly what you said. It's accountability. So one of the things that we want to demand in this Homeland Security Appropriations Bill, right now we're in a CR. We've only got, I believe, 9 days left until it expires and only 4 legislative days to get this done, is that we need there to be independent investigations that local and state law enforcement, district attorney, attorney generals can do that investigation because the people of this country, by and large, have no faith in the Department of Justice conducting a genuine investigation and no internal investigation that is genuine occurring within the Department of Homeland Security because, as I said, immediately upon the killing of Alex Preedy, statements were made that were clearly untruthful. So I was one of the first members of Congress to co-sponsor the Immigration Court Due Process Protection Act, and that would put an end to the practice of individuals showing up to their court hearings and being detained. That's a piece of it. But we really do need that outside independent investigation and the sharing of information in investigations. If the federal government or the Department of Justice is going to say, this is under our purview and we're not communicating at all with the State Attorney General of Minnesota or otherwise, then there's no faith that this is going to be a true investigation that's going to lead to justice. And we demand justice for the people who lost their lives. So we're going to continue to push the piece of legislation I mentioned. And as we're amending this appropriations bill, I call upon my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to demand that independent investigations occur, and it's not solely under the purview of DHS or the Department of Justice.
Thank you, Congressman. Before we go on to our next question, Congressman, let me ask you this. If constituents in Central New York or the Mohawk Valley need assistance with a federal agency or with their Social Security or veterans benefits, can your office help with that? Where should folks go to request assistance?
Absolutely. Well, of course, We're always here to help. You can call my Syracuse office, which is 315-233-4333, or my Utica office, 315-732-0713, or you can always visit mannion.house.gov and submit any constituent case that we would be able to work on and assist. I do want to also mention, as I did at the beginning, that we have mobile office hours tomorrow across the district from 10 to 1 at the following locations: the Liverpool Library, the Auburn Public Theater Cafe 108, the Cortland Free Library, my office in the State Office Building in Utica, and the Cazenovia Public Library. Those mobile office hours are occurring from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. tomorrow.
Thank you, Congressman. And just to quickly repeat for everyone, if you're a constituent and need assistance with a federal agency, you can always reach out to a member of our team at 315-233-4333 or visit our website, mannion.house.gov. And don't forget about the Congressman's newsletter by pressing *6. Back to our live questions now. Our next question comes from Christina in Vernon. Christina, you're now live with the Congressman.
Hello, Christina.
Oh, sorry about that. Yep.
No problem. Go ahead with your question.
Okay. So it was a couple things. The nationalizing of the voting controlled by the Republicans, him going into Georgia and demanding all of those votes be extracted and brought to wherever for his disposal. And does he not realize that the DOJ and the Supreme Court don't work for him? I mean, where do we draw the line here? And where are there any Republicans that have ethics, scruples, and morals and understand how the federal system works?
Well, I thank you for your question, Christina, and I stand with you. Not only are those Republicans, not standing up when they know where, certain jurisdictions have control under the law and where they don't. They were elected. They have been elected. They got here because of fair and free elections. And I've been in close elections. I won an election by 2%. That was in an absentee count. I lost an election by 2% in an absentee count. I won an election by 10 votes that was in a hand recount. And then I've won another election by 5. But my point is that I watch the process work. Our elections are run professionally in a bipartisan way. All of our boards of elections have an equal number of Democratic and Republican staff, and each county has an elections commissioner. So I share your frustration. I could hear it. The elected people of this country, Democrat and Republican, know that our elections are working. They know that they're working. And President Trump, back in 2016, the first time he used the word "stop the steal" was when he lost the Iowa caucuses to Ted Cruz. I've accepted defeat. I've accepted victory, but I've also watched the process work. And one of the pillars of our democracy are free and fair elections, and they are working. There is not widespread voter fraud. There are not undocumented people voting in our elections. And when someone does commit voter fraud, the penalties are very severe, as they should be. Following the 2020 presidential election, what we saw was an attempt to steal the election, threaten the vice president so that he would not certify the vote. Mike Pence carried out his constitutional duties. And then there was an action to assemble a fake slate of electoral college delegates. And some of those people ended up being investigated, charged, and went to jail. Also, the president himself called the Republican Secretary of State in Georgia and demanded that he find 11,000 votes. So it is amazing that we are back here. Am I concerned about our elections in 2026 and 2028? I am. We all should be. And one piece of evidence is what the president just directed his federal agencies to do, which is to go into Georgia. So I accept my election results. The president has not when he loses. Conveniently, he does not. So I have great concerns. I can tell you that I've worked with my leadership and partner organizations to make sure that there is a plan for the 2026 and 2028 elections. We have tremendous legal teams on our side and our partners that are expecting that the president may continue to take actions like this, using federal agencies, trying to suppress the vote, trying to discredit the vote. And that's why I'm talking about it now. So I also support campaign finance law bills because we have too much big money that is in politics. You saw on Inauguration Day who stood behind President Trump, and it was the billionaire class. So we really need to overturn Citizens United. I support the Democracy for All amendment and the Citizens Over Corporations amendment to try to get the big money out of politics, which is a piece of this. So I thank you for your question. I wish I could use the words that I assure you that our elections are going to be carried through, but I hope and believe that the Supreme Court does its job and sees that actions like this are unconstitutional and that elections fall under the purview of the states. And there's been a lot of commentary and a lot of reporting around this action and defending what the law is. And I'm going to continue to speak up on it and work with my colleagues on my side of the aisle and ask my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to join us to preserve one of those pillars of democracy, which is our free and fair elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. While we're waiting for the next question, let's go ahead and ask the audience a quick poll question. Our second poll question for tonight is, do you think your groceries, rent, or utility bills are more affordable now than before? Please press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for unsure. I'll repeat that one more time. Do you think your groceries, rent, or utility bills are more affordable now than before? And press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for unsure. And thank you for participating in that question. We'll go back to our live questions now. Our next question comes from Lawrence in Manlius about the Epstein files. Lawrence, you're now live with the Congressman.
Good evening, Congressman. Congratulations on the outstanding work you are doing in representing your district. It's really very exciting to see that we've sent somebody to Congress who understands the Constitution. I'm not so interested in Epstein, to be honest with you. I think he was a horrible human being, and there are so many more important issues, as you've talked about tonight. But the fact about the dump this weekend, which included the names of these young women and their identifying information and addresses, is not only outrageous, but it violates the law that the Congress passed and the President signed. Somebody needs to bring the so-called Attorney General as quickly as possible into a hearing and find out what the hell they're doing over there to make matters worse to these 4 young women. That's my comment.
Thank you, Lawrence. I really appreciate the kind words and, of course, your advocacy. the victims of these heinous crimes deserve justice, and I was proud to support, in a bipartisan way, a vote on the floor, a resolution for the full release of the Epstein files. And after that vote, I stood with those victims and I heard their stories. And let me tell you, these are brave women who went through a horrific event at a very young age in their lives, and they deserve justice. They deserve transparency. The American people deserve transparency. So I signed that discharge petition, as did 4 Republicans, and then it came to the floor, and overwhelmingly, with one exception, it had a unanimous vote. And that's the way it should be. What is happening here is there are billionaires that have abused children. They've raped children, and they are being protected. We know that about only half of the files have been released. And that means that real justice is not happening. They deserve it. And what we've seen is the Department of Justice, instead of doing a proper investigation here and an internal investigation to determine why there were mistakes in those redactions and why the victims have been put in an even more dangerous position, we see the weaponization of that department, we see the politicization of that department, and it's not functioning. Pam Bondi is the only head of an agency, if I have my data correct here, my information correct, that has not testified in front of a hearing, including the Judiciary Committee. And that's the way that it should be. I know that there have been many people who have resigned from the DOJ because they will not continue to act in a politicized way and an unlawful way. So the DOJ is not following the law. That release of the Epstein files most recently, those 3 million or so files, they were several days late, I believe over a month late from when we passed that law and it was signed into law, and still only half of them been released. So I stand with the victims. I stand against the billionaires, the people who are powerful, who are wealthy, who should be exposed and should be investigated, charged, and they should have their day in court. We've seen a massive worldwide network of child sex trafficking, and only 2 people have been arrested. One of them is Jeffrey Epstein, and one of them is Ghislaine Maxwell, and many others have destroyed the lives of girls, and many of them have persevered into adulthood, and they're making sure that we hold these people accountable, not just for them, but for the awful scenarios that could occur in the future with the abuse of children. We cannot let this go. We would all be complicit if we don't continue to demand justice and transparency, because more children could be abused in the future. And if we don't take a stand and do what we can now in every single way to make sure that there's accountability for the billionaire rapists that are tied to Jeffrey Epstein, then I don't know what our purpose is here. So I thank you for your question, Lawrence, and give me the ability to continue to advocate for justice and transparency.
Thank you, Lawrence, for the question. And as a reminder to everyone, if you'd like to ask a live question, please press *3. And if you'd like to sign up for Congressman Mannion's newsletter, please press *6. Let's take another live question now. Our next one comes from Alonzo in Syracuse regarding affordability. Alonzo, you're now live with Congressman. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, thank you, sir. Thank you, Congressman Mannion. I went to Anthony Tompkins' house to see you for the first time when you started your campaign, if you will, at the state Senate level. But the question I have is, will the Democrats, both in the House and Senate, start building a strategy on talking about the juxtapose or contrast between the affordability that President Trump said he was going to run on and what he was going to bring us, lower prices and gas, lower prices with our groceries, lower prices, and a lot of the other actions that he talked about, and just put together a plan to say how he's not met that, because he's been doing a lot of fear-mongering, and also he's been diverting the conversation on affordability with the American people. So I'm just trying to figure out if you guys are going to put together a plan of strategy to kind of start talking on that, because you're not really talking on that yet as a team or as a group.
I hear you. Thank you, Alonzo. I remember you well. I remember our conversation, and I know that you do a lot of good for members of our community. I know that you have an organization that does a lot of that. So I look forward to connecting with you maybe another time. But we have been doing that since day one, developing a plan around affordability. And you're right that message doesn't always come through, because it seems like we're in opposition to the president only. But I can tell you this, the president, as you said, made a promise to lower prices on day one. Well, all that money that's going to ICE, tens of billions of dollars, is not helping make things more affordable for the American people. Additionally, under our purview in the Congress are tariffs. And using executive emergency powers, which the courts have preemptively ruled that the president does not have, the uncertainty of the tariffs alone are raising prices. Things are less and less affordable as a result of it. So, number one, we need to rein back in our control over to our branch of government as it relates to tariffs, because those policies have only driven prices up. There's other things that we need to do. We need to continue to enhance our child tax credits and keep more money in people's pockets. I'm a big proponent of universal school meals. When I talk to school district business administrators and people who work in cafeterias, they're already there. They're already making the food. So there's not going to be hardly any, if any, additional cost on our school districts and therefore on our taxpayers. So as a result, to keep money in parents' pockets, let's go with universal school meals. As I said previously too, President Trump made the tax cuts for billionaires and corporations permanent. He did that. But he could not agree to and advocate for, with members of the House and the Senate, an extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Our health care coverage costs are going to go up for everyone and continue to go up, because our hospitals are going to lose revenue as those ACA cuts are expiring. People will fall off their insurance because they can't afford it, and as a result of that, there will be decreased revenue to our healthcare institutions. And we've had the biggest cut to healthcare in the history of this country with the Medicaid cuts that happened in the big, beautiful bill. We need to make sure that we restore that. We also have to reverse the cuts to SNAP. Many people who are on nutrition assistance are working. In fact, the vast majority of them are, but they're trying to make ends meet. So all of those things are part of our agenda that we deserve better. You deserve better, Alonzo. The people of this country deserve better. And billions of dollars should not be going to billionaires, and that should go to perpetuate the corporate tax loopholes that exist. I'm not going to bow down to corporations. And that's what we're seeing in this administration, unfortunately. Everyday Americans are missing out, and they're missing out because things are becoming less affordable with chaotic trade policy and tax cuts for corporations, and corporations that instead of investing back in their employees are taking those profits and they're being put towards stock buybacks. So we also have to lower prescription drug costs. I'm a sponsor of a piece of legislation called Lowering Drug Costs for American Families Act. And in that healthcare space, I'm going to do everything I can to enhance our healthcare facilities, enhance our local infrastructure. That's something that I did with the community funding, project funding priorities that we got over the line. So again, we've got to put people first, everyday Americans first, over corporations and billionaires. And over the course of this year, prices haven't come down because this administration hasn't done anything to address that. What they are doing is brutalizing our communities with draconian immigration enforcement that goes well beyond just trying to find the worst of the worst.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Alexandra in Lafayette. Alexandra, you're now live with the Congressman.
Hello.
Hello, Alexandra. You're on.
Hi.
You're on, Alexandra.
So first, I want to thank you. You've been a real fighter, and I appreciate that so much. My question, and listening to you, kind of touched on this already. As my grandmother used to say, and we've heard this a lot, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And my worry is that the midterms, they are not going to be done in a manner that is accurate, safe, any of those things. And we may vote, I've marched a couple times, that does not seem to impact either Republicans nor Trump. So I'm wondering what we can do as citizens of this country to stop this machine, because they are doing an incredible job, sadly.
Thank you for the question. I agree with you. They had 4 years to plan. This is, by design, as you know, part of Project 2025, to hold on to power, to not let go of the power. And something, as we were talking about elections earlier, the vast majority of people in New York 22, but across this country, see these actions of the administration as very unpopular. And the other side and the administration knows that they're unpopular, and they know that the day of reckoning is coming. They know that accountability is coming. And I was alarmed from day one because I saw these things as so politically damning, so far beyond the pale that, just for example, how we've treated our allies, our friends, and our neighbors in Canada and other places, our trade partners, that this is so politically damning that obviously it's going to hurt them come election time. And with a majority in the House or maybe a majority in the Senate, the things would come like we saw before, which is when there's clear violations of the law or clear breaking of the emoluments clause, there should be investigations and then potentially charges. So they don't, what we're seeing now is the questioning of elections, what happened in Georgia. So what can you do? People want to know what to do. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a long fight. I encourage people to write letters to the editor, to contact their local representatives, and not just federal representatives, but contact them and say, I'm concerned about this administration attempting to not certify or invalidate these elections or intimidate people at the ballot box. And we've already seen this happening. And you've seen what has happened in special elections around this country is that people are speaking at the ballot box and they're saying, I don't like this. I like the Constitution. I like the rule of law. So I encourage you to write letters to the editor. I encourage you to contact your elected officials. I encourage you at civil organizations, whatever they might be. They could be chambers of commerce. They could be, town board meetings, village board meetings, whatever. Ask go to their public comment period and say, I'm really concerned about our elections. Many of these people that you will be talking to were elected, so they do understand that the elections are valid. This should concern all Americans, not just Democrats. I encourage you to purchase local journalism. You know, we've lost a lot of media outlets over time, and we need them to continue to carry out investigative journalism, because we know that that social media voice that's out there, and many of the TV networks and some of the other print or digital outlets have been taken over by corporations who may be in support and not be fully truthful in what they're broadcasting. So support local journalism by paying to get behind the firewall. And we need organizations that are supposed to be nonpartisan to speak up, you know? So, and then encourage individuals that are willing and organizations that are willing to speak up. If we all step up, as have many Republicans over the course of these 10 years, Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, Marjorie Taylor Greene, these people have come out and by and large told the truth when they saw that what was happening in this country is not good for the future of this country. So there are some things that you can do. And we've got to continue to be persistent. We've got to continue to protest and enact our constitutional rights. And when we see something like a suppression of our First Amendment rights, we need to call it out. I'm going to call it out. Keep doing what you're doing. And Christina, and telling your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers the truth. This should concern everyone. It's un-American. It's a violation of our norms and our values and our laws, and people don't want it. It's unpopular. So stay strong, stay united, keep telling the truth, and we will get through this. We will get through it. And if there is any attack on our elections prior to, during the elections in November, or afterwards, that is going to be wide open for the American people to see. And that's where I hope we don't have to, but I do believe that, you know, we've got to continue to tell the truth. These actions of the administration are already unpopular. Doing something as undemocratic as violating our constitutional right of being able to vote or not certifying elections is going to be also unpopular. And I always put my money on the American people to do the right thing and stand up. It is all of us together. And I am inspired by the words that I hear from people every day, all of us together, that are going to preserve this republic.
Thank you, Congressman. I think we have time for just one final question from the audience before we need to wrap up. And that question comes from Eric in Marcellus about climate change. Eric, you're now live with the Congressman.
Thanks. Hello.
Hello, Eric.
Hi. I'm concerned actually about two things. One is climate change and Trump's use of executive order and other things to dismantle our ability to fight climate change. And the other question I have is about the national debt. We're $39 trillion in debt at this point. Nobody ever talks about it. And to me, it looks like a ticking time bomb. But if you guys were going to get back the House and the Senate next year, the Democrats, I mean, what would you be able to do to combat Trump on these issues?
Thank you for your question. You know, I'm going to start. Thank you, Eric. And I'm going to start. We have to wrap up here quickly. So I'll say on climate change, first of all, I disagree with what this administration is doing. They're taking clean energy projects offline that we absolutely need, that many, you know, we've already gone a long way in advancing those, and our energy demand is only going up. And the technology is there. I see it every day. We want to be innovative. We want to be clean. We want to have our resilient system and an affordable one. Taking things offline does the reverse of that. I was a science teacher for almost 30 years. I taught about carbon sequestering. I taught about combustion. So we need to change our energy systems and still make sure that they're affordable. So I'm with you on that. I have great concerns about it. And just from a market standpoint, we're already seeing natural gas prices spike. So we've got to have a full spectrum of energy generation. We're seeing harmful algal blooms in our lakes, and that is partially due to the increase in temperature. So we've got to take action. On the national debt, I will say that with this big, beautiful bill, ugly bill that I voted against, the national debt is only going to increase. They talk about it being an additional $2.7 to $3.5 trillion, but that is on top of the $2 trillion that it's going to gumbo up already. All of these actions of Elon Musk and his team of tech bros to try to make the government more efficient has only decreased the quality of services, and we aren't saving a dime. Spending is up. So I will tell you that you're absolutely right that people don't talk about it, and we have to talk about it. We have to talk about it, and we have to do something about it. And the way we do that is to pass legislation and funding bills that prioritize everyday Americans and don't prioritize corporations with their big campaign donations and billionaires. We can't do it. So I really appreciate the question, Eric. I thank you for that. I maybe missed a name on Alexandra when I wrapped up with her, so I apologize for that. But I thank everybody for joining us here tonight. I look forward to doing this again real soon. I thank you for being engaged, for loving your country, for caring, and for standing strong with each other and supporting each other.
Thank you, Congressman, for your time tonight and for taking live questions from folks across Central New York and the Mohawk Valley. If you haven't had a chance to ask your question, please follow up with our office over phone or email. And thank you all once again for joining. Have a great night.